I'm Colleen Appel. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the Social Action Circle facilitator here at First UU. I am a 70-year-old woman who dresses like the middle school teacher I once was, an English teacher. I am color neutral and coordinated, but I aspire to dress like an eccentric poet. And to that end, I am wearing my dangly earrings. In October, Reverend Michelle sent out an invitation to all to participate in the planning for November services. Because November's theme was change, I accepted the invite. I had been reading the Buy Nothing, Get Everything project, and my husband Tim and I were experimenting with some joyful ways to change our consumerist culture. The planning group graciously let me have my pick me moment. And because I'd been sharing some of the results with Reverend Michelle, she agreed to join me in planning this particular service. Today, I will give Buy Nothing, Change the World a very practical spin by defining what a sharing economy looks like as an individual practice. Reverend Michelle will follow to make the case for our participation in the Buy Nothing movement as both community building and spiritual practice. David Graeber, an anthropologist, debt resistance activist, and writer, said, "The ultimate hidden truth of the world is that it is something that we make and could just as easily make differently." Thanks to First UU member Suzanne Bounds, who has repeated this statement several times in conversation, this belief is sticking with me. I am imagining what a made differently world looks like. I invite you to join me after the service for an 8-minute video plus discussion that lifts the possibilities of a reimagined world. Up to now, I have put a lot of energy into individual actions. For instance, I've learned how to dramatically decrease my use of plastic, and it's satisfying to add to a growing list of sustainable practices used in my own household. I, along with the rest of you who take cloth bags to the market, might slow climate change a tiny fraction. However, when individual actions become rooted in community, we unleash the power to strengthen our social fabric and thereby radically change the world. In 2013, Rebecca Rockefeller and Liesl Clark created Buy Nothing, a gift economy operated on a hyper-local scale to bring neighbors together. The movement doubled in size during the pandemic. It now has more than 4 million participants in 44 countries around the globe. It's like a radical new economy, except, of course, it's an old economy that has been around forever, says Rockefeller. We're just representing it. Buy Nothing says the key to a joyful life and a planet of abundance is to pursue every possible alternative before buying something. The book is a compendium of ideas on how to refuse, reuse, make, and fix. In an economy of barter, trades are based on what the trading partners establish as equivalent value. In the Buy Nothing economy, all gifts have equal value, no matter their dollar amount in our current economy. Nothing is monetized. In a gift economy, every member is a vital participant, no matter their social status or economic reality. Gift economies are based on the assumption that there is enough for everyone. And if we share what we have, the act of sharing builds relationships between us, relationships that will protect us, support us, provide for us, and magnify our joy. There is no joy in leaving my casts off in a bin at Goodwill, but the joy that comes from intentional giving is beyond measure. Give creatively and often. Take interview-ready clothing donations to Career Closet in the Missouri Jobs Center. Give your extra flower pots to someone who will fill them with plant starts and pass them on. Now that you're done with your painting project, give away that almost full gallon of paint you didn't need to someone who admired the color, and feel the warm glow when they send you a photo of the painted room. Answer that meal train call, transport pets to the cold weather shelter, make curtains for ecclesia, give freely without any strings attached for the pure joy of it. The buy nothing economy has 3 legs. The first leg is the giving. The second leg is the asking. This is the hard part. Most of us have difficulty asking. The Buy Nothing book tells its readers to make themselves ask for something. So here's my ask today. I would like to borrow a steamer for an upholstery cleaning project. Now, what do I get out of the asking? When my ask gets a response from one of you, I'll either strengthen a connection I already have or develop a brand new relationship. The third leg is gratitude. The authors of Buy Nothing advocate expressing gratitude in front of others, fostering the understanding that we are all interconnected and our happiness is tied to others. Carla, when you hear this, the earrings I'm wearing, the ones you brought me back from South America, make me happy and connect me to you. By speaking up about the good that has come my way, both through giving and receiving, I hope to inspire others to give, to ask, and to share more. In other words, magnify the good. First UU experimented with Buy Nothing this summer. Members were invited to bring all things garden related to a shared table out there in the hall. Did you hear how joyfully Rick proclaimed he had a bunch of tomatoes to give away? And did you see the magnificent fern that Della contributed? I took home the large container of coconut oil with a bold free sign on its lid. Every time I lift a spoonful from the jar, I will think warm thoughts of my church family and that anonymous donor. Now that gardening season is over, we might make the table a Buy Nothing, Prepare for Winter place. If you sew as a winter hobby, there's a box of thread on the table for the taking. An economy developed through relationships and interconnectedness is the path to a caring economy where the needs of all are acknowledged and fulfilled. I'd like to start a first UU Buy Nothing group as a step forward to creating a world that cares for all that inhabit it. Ben Williams tried a Buy Nothing project and called it the shareocracy of the future. He talked about the results on his Facebook page with these words: if we grow the genuine culture of sharing, even a little, already we're making kinder, more sustainable communities. At its limit, we could radically change the economy, how we treat the earth, and how we engage with each other and our communities. Reverend Michelle? I have to weed my library every now and then, and I haven't gotten around to reading this book about how to extend the church beyond the church walls, and it needs to find a better home. So today, I am happy to gift it to you.
I was in a space yesterday with at a Disciples Church, community Christian church in Kansas City, the one on the plaza with the steeple of light. And my ordination is in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. And I was talking with someone in that space for whom that was not the thing. And we were talking about hymnals of different traditions. And they were like, well, I use the disciples, the chalice hymnal, when I'm looking for communion hymns, because you all are sort of obsessed with the table. And so this is God's table, is obviously an appropriate book for me to take home. So thank you. Colleen, I am always inspired by your generosity. And I think it makes me a better person. Earlier this year, my wife and I were the recipients of a really wonderful gift, a big gift. In fact, value-wise, it's the biggest gift I've ever received. I'm not going to share the details of that exchange here because that's not what mattered. But what I want to share is the way that that gift has transformed me. I'll admit that I've gone through phases in my life where I was committed to a sharing economy for various reasons. Sometimes financial. I didn't have what I needed, and someone else did, and I was willing to receive it. Sometimes ecological. The fewer things we buy, the less plastic packaging we put in the landfill, and the better off our earth is. And sometimes as an attempt to build community resilience in preparation for some anticipated event that would force community members to rely on one another for their literal survival. If we are disconnected in communities when the stuff hits the fan, so to speak, we don't have people to go to immediately to help meet our needs and to meet their needs. Each time, though, I've been sucked back into the dominant culture cycles of desire, consume, discard, repeat. I shouldn't say sucked in, I guess, because I've always gone quite willingly. But something is different now, not just for me, but for all of us. As we strive together to come out of the sustained global trauma that is the COVID-19 pandemic, we find ourselves in liminal space, an in-between space where the confluence of what was, what is, and what can be hangs in the balance, inviting us to make hard, intentional choices about what we'll bring back and what we'll live into. In this time where we've all experienced a sort of reset that none of us asked for, we have the opportunity to experience transcendence, whether that transcendence for us is intellectual, spiritual, practical, or all of the above. This moment that we find ourselves in invites us to acknowledge what aspects of our lives might need recalibrating and to try new things to make that happen. So in the months since I was the recipient of this generous gift, I've been seeking out more opportunities to give myself. I leave bigger tips to the essential workers who keep serving me. Now, mind you, I'm the youngest child of a single mom who worked as a waitress in a truck stop for most of my childhood. I'm already a good tipper. But lately, I just find myself filled with gratitude for those who serve others and are so often underappreciated at best, and more often straight up verbally abused. So I've wanted to show that gratitude in a meaningful way. And I know for many workers trying to make ends meet, cash is the most meaningful way to say thank you. And verbal affirmation is a close second. You're doing a good job. I appreciate you. Thanks for being here today. As it turns out, I can pretty easily do both, and I bet you can too. I find I'm always looking at the things that I have and wondering if I'm done with them and whether they could serve a greater good or be of better use to someone else. And when I determine that they can, I set out to find that person and match them up with the gift. I can't even express with words the amount of joy that comes from handing something off to someone that you know will use it more or better than you did. This change in my own outlook on giving and receiving is not simply a mental shift. It's a spiritual shift too. I feel more deeply connected to people, to the resources of this earth, and to the source of all things, which in my theological framework, I call God. For you, it may be universe, goddess, the Tao, or even evolutionary spirit, human agency. Whatever the source of goodness and love in your life, I'm willing to risk going out on a limb to say with relative certainty that when you engage in a shift from ceaseless consumerism to a sharing economy, you'll feel more connected to it. In teaching about spiritual transformation for the Center for Action and Contemplation, Cynthia Bourgeault affirms the center's core principle. We do not think ourselves into a new way of living. We live ourselves into a new way of thinking. She writes that as human beings come to their glory, the world comes to its glory. The transformation that comes about when we exchange in the communal and spiritual work of giving, asking, and gratitude happens in ever-expanding concentric circles, impacting more and more people until communities are changed, renewed, and rebuilt. As Colleen said earlier, when individual actions become rooted in community, we unleash the power to strengthen our social fabric and thereby radically change the world. And what are we doing as a church community, if not trying to change the world for the better? Colleen named the 3 legs of the buy nothing economy as giving, asking, and gratitude. And I want to suggest that while these are action verbs with practical application, that they are also words with deep spiritual implications. In his book, Consolations, the poet David White writes, "Giving is a difficult and almost contemplative art form that has to be practiced to be done well. Giving has an enormous horizon and breadth that is hard to compass. It is both practicality, it creates bonds and dependencies necessary to our communal well-being, but is also an essentiality. The essence of giving being that the other person is simply alive, and by corollary, not only a privilege to know, but a living privilege themselves, who has the astonishing ability to acknowledge both the somebody who has given and the something that was given to them. As far as we know, no other corner of creation but a human being has the ability to fully acknowledge the spirit of another in this way." In Consolations, a wonderful little book that contains short essays about the deeper meanings of about 50 or so different words, White doesn't include the word asking per se, but he writes about the word help and says, help is something that we want to do without, as if the very idea disturbs and blurs the boundaries of our individual endeavors, as if we cannot face how much we need in order to go on. At every stage, we are dependent on our ability to ask for specific forms of help at very specific times and in very specific ways. Every transformation has at its heart the need to ask for the right kind of generosity. And about gratitude, White writes, "Gratitude is not a passive response to something we have been given. Gratitude arises from paying attention, from being awake in the presence of everything that lives within and without us. It is the deep, a priori state of attention that shows we understand and are equal to the gifted nature of life." What if the continual communal practice of giving, asking, and gratitude has the potential to transform us from the inside out? And what if it really does have the potential to change our world? What if we don't have to continue to prop up the economic systems that benefit a relative few and literally suck the life out of everyone else? This past Tuesday, we started UU Connections by reflecting on a quote from John Shar that said, "The future is not a result of choices among alternative paths offered by the present, but a place that is created. Created first in the mind and will and next in activity, the future is not some place we are going to, but one we are creating. The paths are not to be found, but made, and the activity of making them changes both the maker and the destination." Now, in that conversation, people much smarter than me talked about how that might not be possible or true. And if I kept the idea in my brain, I might agree. But in the depths of my spirit, I believe it. And I've seen it on a small scale, which means that I know it can happen on a larger scale with greater application and participation. So I'm still pretty firmly in the camp with the folks at the Center for Action and Contemplation who say we don't think our way into a new way of living. We act our way into a new way of thinking. So let's get to it. My gift, inspired by Colleen's gift, and also because I can't take a book onto my bookshelf without removing a book from my bookshelf, is the wonderful David White book that I've been quoting today, Consolations, and I'm giving it to my friend Millie. For the interlude this morning, we have Cuando el Pobre, or When the Poor Ones, performed by Eva.